conduct. This is what the entity is engaged in. This is the entity that's engaged in what is witchcraft, because the significance of that is to get an emotional response. Engaged in monitoring. This is what the Nephilim are. They're going to federal prison, though. While they're engaged in a failed spiritual attack, and that's what the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, they are the Nephilim. They literally sat me in a cell from 11 a.m. until after 7 p.m. And they did so that I could not get a ride on the bus. And they did so monitoring the whole time. All they were doing was monitoring, demons monitoring, deputy after deputy crossing path, San Bernardino County wearing nurses' uniforms crossing path, stalking with amplified audible activity, putting demons in the cell with me monitoring. They're doing so while the entity had the fake sun over the West Valley Detention Center, which I've already proven to you is the case. They had that at 10 o'clock in the morning, where VIVANCO and San Bernardino County are gang stalking with the people of the state, and the entity is gang stalking right now by helicopter, and they engaged in what is making up what is a means to, which is even what they made up is in a violation of the law, and this is why they are going to federal prison, because they were gang stalking this morning. And this is no basis to exclude from the public property of the Ontario Town Square, where they did that on video again, and they are going to federal prison for it. That is VIVANCO. That is the entity that's flying over my head, following me around in the city, and then engaging in this in the face of the federal government that's not investigating. This is the entity that's blatantly targeting and not investigating. And the entity is engaging in targeting because they're counting on their witchcraft to work, and it's not going to work. Not only are you not going to possess me with any demon, I am going to report it, and I'm going to prosecute, and they're going to prison. San Bernardino County Sheriff, you're going to be disbanded for torture and kidnapping, and the Ontario Police Department disbanded for torture, kidnapping upon what is exposure for federal group stalking and monitoring. That's why this helicopter is following me around while I am over there on Euclid Avenue, flying over the building, over my head as I turn on this phone, and flying in circles over me here, where I have multiple shadows, and the people of the state, like I'm reading their license plate, molesting with light, gang stalking. This is P.O.C. Here's my shadow here. And here's my shadow here. And the entity, and that's a stuttered shadow. This is the entity that's obsessed with monitoring me. And I want to be clear, Valencia engaging in what is violence today. Okay, engaging in what is trying to throw my property away. This is also, they went through my wallet, went through my property to get my name. And that's, again, the entity that's malicious. They already know who I am. They're monitoring. This is why they're stalking by helicopter. But they committed an unlawful search while they're engaged in the malicious pattern of conduct, filling out a 602 that doesn't apply on public property. Also, when you are coming and harassing me and then stating that I harassed some mysterious person that doesn't exist. This is the entity that's going to federal prison, and literally they're going to federal prison for this gang stalking by helicopter after they engaged in manufacturing information to commit a kidnapping. This is the entity that engaged in defaming my character, Jason Isaac Fields. This is the entity that's targeting me with the Ontario Police, relying on this criminal conduct while these witches are thinking that harassing me is going to get them what is a demon on me. They've sacrificed themselves. They're the ones that are going to drop dead. I'm telling you right now about what's going to happen to the Nephilim. The Nephilim make up the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. The Nephilim make up the Ontario Police Department. The Nephilim make up the city of Ontario that are gang stalking. These are demons, and they engaged in criminal conduct for which you go to federal prison, and that's how desperate they are. That's how scared they are. That's doing so. I want to be clear. Jason Isaac Fields, gang stalking me, this manufactured criminal record, that is, again, the product of targeting, is not going to resolve what is his defaming my character in court. It's not going to resolve his sex trafficking me and putting my nudity on the internet where you're putting cameras in my apartment home. It's not going to resolve the entity stealing my property and stealing my identity and keeping court hearings about my property a secret from me. It's not going to resolve any of that. And this is clear evidence of targeting. There is no resolution when the government is targeting. Jason Isaac Fields has nothing to resolve what is the criminal acts that the federal government committed against me. He's going to federal prison because this is criminal conduct that the federal government is cooperating with. This is P.O.C. Valencia, DOUREM, and VIVANCO are going to federal prison. And that demon-possessed homosexual that wears the Securitas uniform, he's going to federal prison as well. He engaged in criminal summoning with Corey Watson. A couple months ago, I documented that, and he engaged in criminal summoning with the kidnappers on, well, that includes Corey Watson again on June 16, 2022. He engaged in criminal summoning in December of 2020 as well. He's going to federal prison. And the entity is gang stalking me by helicopter. You're going to federal prison because that's exactly what they were doing this morning. That's exactly what they were doing this morning. And they did it while they are lying about harassment. And I'm documenting what happened the entire morning. I'm documenting it the entire morning, just like when they accused me of molesting a child. And I'm documenting everything that happened on June 16, 2022. And there was no molestation of a child. The entity is going to federal prison. They're engaged in torture and they're engaged in monitoring. They're demons. This is the Nephilim, and they're trying to put a demon on me. There's not going to be any demon placed on me. The entity engaged in a failed sacrifice, and that's relevant to the criminal monitoring, which is surveillance. And they committed what is an unlawful arrest pursuant to what is harassment and targeting, and they engaged in an unlawful search in doing so. And it is no expulsion from the Ontario Town Square. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, that is disbanding for torture and kidnapping. All they did was sit me. That's torture. They sat me in a cell, and all they were doing was monitoring. This department's being disbanded. That's a demon. That's the Nephilim, and they're stalking. This is P.O.C. They're monitoring my vagina, and so is Mike LORENZ. Engaging in harassing me because I'm putting on the internet the truth that Mike LORENZ is not actually consumed with his wife's vagina. He's obsessed with mine while he's keeping it under surveillance. And then you kidnap, engage in harassment, make up harassment with people. How are you going to make it up when I'm documenting what's happening on my podcast? The entirety of that day. While you are targeting, and you're targeting every day and night. And I want to be clear, the impunity that Valencia and VIVANCO and DOUREM exhibit, that's why they're going to prison, and so are the people of the state. They engage in kidnapping with Starbucks right here, July 4, 2025. Ocean, Patty, Amelia, all of them that engage in kidnapping, they're all going to federal prison, and that's why. That's exactly why they're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C., and so is Jason Isaac Fields. There is no resolving. Targeting me and kidnapping me is not going to help the federal government that stole my property with Tracy Banks, that enabled murder by people who are dead because the entity wants to keep targeting me and keep it a secret that they're targeting me. It's not going to resolve the defamation that Jason Isaac Fields committed as a corrupt federal official, because that's what they're banking on. That's why they're still targeting. And targeting me does not create what is any explanation. It does not legitimize what is theft of my property, what is sex trafficking, what is pedophilia, what is defamation. It doesn't make it any sense. It doesn't make it legitimate while they're targeting together. 7ELS214. This is P.O.C. That's the state. That's the state that makes up that you're harassing me when you don't even talk to them. And the entity did again, made up information, and then just committed what is a search and kidnapped me and took me away. While I'm documenting and demanding, tell me what was the disturbance. What was the disturbance? Because you just searched my property and you just put handcuffs on me. What was the disturbance? If you don't answer that question, you committed kidnapping, you're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:09 p.m. and this is the same Ontario police that is gang stalking right here. And that's why the people of the state are going to federal prison. 7FLS214, that's a demon. This is the Nephilim stalking with light in the path. Here's all those shadows right here. There's another shadow. Here's a shadow. Here's a shadow over here. Here's a shadow over here. She's monitoring. That's a demon. P.O.C.